Eric, this is one of those episodes where we are going to go against the convention. We're going against the algorithm because we learned in this episode, which is the truth. We already know this, but sometimes you just got to be with some of your people to really get to that tonic once again, that we're trying to stay human in modernity. And what is the episode, therefore, for today? Which like Ryan hit it and then you crystallized it.
It's book Bodybuilding and the Dog. That's what it is today, folks. And you may not know what that means now, but you're going to have a visceral understanding of what that means over the course of the next, I don't know, 120 minutes. I can't remember how long it was. I was just in the flow.
Oh, yeah. And that is often times the best conversations that we have, at least I find on Iron Culture, where we hash out an idea. We're three people that have dedicated collectively about 40 years to the fitness space. Of course, we have a lot of things to share about fitness. We also realize the common threads that exist outside of fitness that from participating in a shared space extend far beyond that. So it's only natural to reflect on things outside of fitness and then be able to bring it back in. But I was just amazed today because this is my first opportunity to speak with Ryan Doris. He's one of those honestly almost mystical people where I've heard about him for the last decade, and I've heard him speak and I've read his posts. I'm like, this is an eloquent individual, and he has a lot to say. Where he thinks about these things. And Eric, we're sharing this off air, where having someone like Ryan on makes you think that's just the caliber of thinker that exists in our space, but it ain't so. Like he's talking about, and we're nodding our head like, yeah, like that's exactly what it's like. How many conversations have we had in actuality like this, that like the listeners about to listen to?
Not many. And we've been very privileged that many of them have actually happened on Iron Culture, which is why we do what we do, folks. So yeah, no, this is definitely one of my favorite conversations, let alone one of my favorite Iron Culture episodes. And I think this is, Ryan's a lot of things. He's an athlete, he's a coach. But more than anything else, I think he's someone who helps use his experiences to help others who are in the same community, the athletic community, the evidence-based community, the lifting community. There's a lot of Venn diagrams there. Make meaning and figure out how to do this thing long-term and actually make you better. And if that isn't essentially a 100% parallel to the Iron Culture mission statement, I don't know what is, Omar.
Eric, the final thing I'll say, man, the unspoken understanding that the three of us shared when we talk about longevity. It's not like, oh, like they just want to merely do it at a mediocre amount for the rest of their life. If you stay in the game long enough, you will refine your skills. You will get better. We know that longevity essentially almost always breeds better excellence. So it's not just a question like, oh, we like to do this and we want to continue to do this. It's like we kind of want to, at some level, maybe keep improving. And to do that, we need more time to refine our craft. So when we talk about the idea of longevity, it's not just a admitting of a failure or mediocrity or settling down or this concept. Oh, they're talking about balance. Like, I guess Ryan really doesn't want it anymore. Eric, like he competed in 2019. Is it all over for him? It's like, nah. We're staying in this game and we're staying sharp in this game. And this is the natural flow, volatility that basically for the entirety of human existence was the norm. And now we exist in a time and place where it's like, go, 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 go. Oh, you're not going, go, 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 go. And we know this from the algorithm, the pressure that is placed, that it sometimes doesn't crystallize and form diamonds. In fact, if anything, it could be the very thing hampering you from achieving that next level.
That's really well said. And honestly, folks, we Omar and I could talk about how awesome this episode is forever, but I think we should probably let it happen. But I'll just say I think this is a fantastic masterpiece on how to keep nurturing the flame rather than letting it burn out too quickly. So with that, we'll let you enjoy this conversation with Ryan Doris.
On Iron Culture, we have the mythos, which really is the rich tapestry that is lifting, the history of lifting as it relates to the past, present, and now future. And it seems appropriate, Eric, to have Ryan Doris on today as our guest, not only because he's a phenomenal athlete and coach, but because when we had Sam on maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, there was a story that he shared that involved Ryan basically telling him to show the fuck up at his first bodybuilding show. So I love these ones where we could talk about training, talk about coaching, nutrition, all those things, your accomplishments, but also just some of the war stories. And it was just so lucid the way that Sam shared that story that I could picture it, where basically he's trying to compete. He's not like really posing the way he's posing, and you're just backstage telling him like, man, are you here to win it or what?
Wake the F up. That was fantastic. Yeah.
Dude, if it weren't for bodybuilding, I don't know how I would get my release of serial killer out, right? Like I have that little twinge in me where I'm like, I fucking like I have a little patch, not in society, not in day to day, but when it comes to men against men, I want to kill another guy, right? And I'm soft, so don't punch me in the face, don't touch me. I'm just gonna fucking out pageant you as hard as I can, as squeeze as I can. So, dude, I always saw, the beauty of training and the sign. It was always so beautiful. But, dude, when you're on that stage, all the work is done, and I hate it when people say, "All the work is done, have fun." No, we've prepared for war. You motherfucker, go kill, 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 go kill, go out there and pass out if you have to pass out. So that was the mentality I think that got us good. I think between Sam and I, we are foundationally the same bodybuilder, the same athlete, because of those college days from sharing books, making sure we're signed up for the same schedule, right? We just went to the same business school, and then we'd hit the gym, and then we even worked at the same bar at night together, right? So I'd be with him from 8 in the morning till 4:30 in the morning at the bar, right? We spent the entire day together, and it was a unique time to run a race with someone who can stay step for step for you and beat you some days, right? And I could beat him some days. It was a unique situation in which I've never found a training partner ever who I can keep up with. In fact, I just saw Sam last week, and he's coming to my house next week. And his family situation, I'm envious of it. I'm like, damn, he's got kids before me. He's such a great father, right? I'm literally still jealous of how good he's doing, right? And I want a piece of it. So shout out to Sam. He's been my carrot for the last 12 years of my life, and my brother, and I love him for it. So
That is awesome. And in some
yeah,
ways, it's insane that we haven't had you on Iron Culture yet, because let me just tell you, Ryan, what you're putting down, I'm not even picking it up. I'm realizing that I'm putting the same thing down in a room just adjacent to yours with Omar here. So what you were talking about there, having that killer instinct and desire to be fiercely competitive when it comes to being on stage, yet also having balance, the right focus, being evidence-based, having honor and camaraderie, and a long-term relationship with being a competitor. I think there are very few athletes and coaches who can actually hold those seemingly and sometimes contradictory things within the same person, the same
right.
philosophy, and use it in a facilitative way rather than getting, burned up like Icarus going towards the sun. And I think,
Hmm.
what you do and the foundation of what you do, you're a very eloquent speaker, but I think you help with that eloquence. You help other athletes understand all the different beasts inside of them and basically come to some type of treaty between them so that they can be a better version of themselves. So
Yeah.
I'm just glad to have you on, my friend.
I appreciate that. That's a hell of an intro, and that's what I try to do. I think that's what we all try to do. But I would say, and I'm not trying to make it too deep. I think we live in a society where we have forgotten who we are as people. Right? We live in a society where it is. I don't want to live in another time. 2021 is a year I want to live in. But there's a trade-off with all this safety, with all this comfort, with all this technology. I am still that eighth hominid, right? The Neanderthal was before me. The home, like I'm still the evolution of that great hominid monkey evolution. I still have something in me that feels like it would feel nice to bite this person's neck, right? I have to make it safe for society, though. I have to find a version to scratch that itch. And I think we live in society now where those things just aren't legal anymore, and there's no place to do it anymore. And I think for many people, lifting weights and competing has been that only outlet. And I don't think I've ever seen it, and Sam, I would agree too, and probably both of you, I don't think I've ever seen it so much as this is something I want to do because I'm interested in it. I am, as a person, I am a complex being, right? One of my favorite Walt Whitman quotes is, do I do I contradict myself? Yes. I'm large. I'm a human. I contain multitudes. I have so much in here that I need to express. So when I'm in a phase of my life where I want to have chaos and grow from that chaos, one of the things for me that's always healed it was go to war, get nasty, right? And one of the nice packaged ways to do that I found in society is get on a track and run as fast as you can. Get on a bench and lift it and organize it. Do 10 reps as best as you can. Give them the best single that you can give them. And I think that translates into scratching some itch blindly, where I didn't have to go in a ring and, swing a sword to kill 10 lions. I can just squeeze my muscles and I get the same effect for it. So I think as a person, not a man or woman thing, as a person, we desire blood running down the chin. We do. We really do, right? And without it, we have a society rampant with hesitation, right? Like a lot of anxiety. One of my favorite Soren Kierkegaard quotes is, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom." We are so afraid to make those decisions because we can't. We legally can't anymore, right? We'll put you in prison. So pick a sport that you love and let it out, and let it out there. You're more than allowed to. I was watching a UFC fight. You're more than allowed to break a person's arm nowadays. It's illegal, right? If you want to go and do it, do it. But that's not my vibe, right? I'm a little smart. I'm a little smarter. I want to use my brain more, and then I want to use. So for me, that's been my athlete as a person, and that's wax and wane. Right now, I have no desire to compete. Right, I'm all domesticated. I just made I have a bread rising right now as we speak. Right.
That's amazing.
That controlled chaos, though, Ryan, to your point, where you have that outlet where you allow yourself to funnel and channel those things, I think is something wonderful. Just real quick, I am going to go completely tangential here because I got to do this, because there's only a few people
Bring the tangent, my friend,
that are into that their MMA too. Ryan, how much are you into the UFC? We'll take just 2 minutes for this. How
Okay,
into the UFC?
I am, but I'm not. I am by accident. So one of my best buddies that I grew up with since third grade, he's been one of my best friends. He got me into bodybuilding. In fact, he gave me my first supplement. It was Scivation Extend. Right. Right. He showed me the lane. Right. He was the guy who introduced me. So he's always been a weekend warrior athlete. He now owns a jiu-jitsu gym. So he has gone fully into that world. Yeah. When I want to see him, I got to compromise. I got to enter his world. So I go and I watch the fights on Saturday night with him, right? Him at the gym with the guys. So just by pure accident and purely by watching these athletes, I realized how low skilled of an athlete I am compared to these people, right? I think the thing that sold me was watching Jon Jones. I think once I saw that grace of his style of fighting, I was like, this dude can not only take pain, he's tired, he's exhausted, right? Because he not only has strength, he not only has endurance, he not only has skill, he not only has precision, and you're somebody trying to kill you, right? I think, to me, I can't stop watching it, not from the blood sport aspect, but from how fine of an athlete these UFC fighters are. So purely from the respect of what they're doing, I bow down to them completely. So I'm a huge fan simply from that.
Love to hear it. I was going to say that about Jon Jones, pretty much the GOAT of MMA. I just wish, you know what I wish, Ryan, because he does have a solid team, and this is no knock against anyone, but just imagine if he had like an Andy Galpin, or if he had when we talk about nutrition optimization, or his corner. He has a good corner. I'm not going to pick apart anything, and I'm not saying it's going to elevate him to the next level, but there's still, I could still tell in MMA, like when you hear some of the coaches, as an example, Eric, talk about nutrition, it's like, well, we don't want him to eat food that's too heavy. Not Jones, so I'm just speaking very broadly, but there's direct quotes by nutritionists that still aren't what I would call evidence-based, and are still kind of, it's more a subjective feel, what they're thinking. Like I was recently rewatching some huge into MMA, UFC, Pride, before that, Pride FC, Sakuraba #1. I would say that they're talking about an alkalizing diet. And this is like 2000. I was rewatching a UFC, maybe 2016. And you think, but like 2016 is pretty late. Can we all agree on that if we're talking like alkalizing diets?
For sure.
2016,
for
right?
Sure.
And so you just see that chasm that exists, and you're thinking, wow, like these are world-class athletes. If only they had a window into what we experience or what we know, it would only make 1% difference. I could say for weight optimization, there's some of the things, like once again, watching some of these things, like the Ultimate Fighter, when they do the weight cuts, where I'm like, man, you're coming in way too heavy. You're not like body comp optimized. Your food choices aren't satiating. So like, it's just, like, you know what I mean, Eric? It's just these little things that it's painful from that small microcosm. But as a whole, I would say, just real quick, that my first love was, I saw it when I was first, I think 16. It was Pride, then UFC. It was on Spike TV, it was called, where they had it on. And then I went to a small university in a small town, and I actually sought to go to an MMA gym, but at the time in like 2007, it just didn't exist. And so basically I was like, I'll do some lifting, and then Waze lead on a Waze, and here we are. But again, punch in the face, hell yes. Punching someone else in the face in controlled chaos, that's it. You want to break my arm? Guess what? I want to break
Amazing.
your arm. You know, that is what it is. So yeah.
I have two thoughts to that, and I don't want to make this a UFC podcast because I'm not Joe Rogan, right? I think one thought that I have initially is you're right, but you know how long does it take for a market to get sold, right? I think one of the things that I see right now with Weight Watchers, I'm like, oh yeah, that's our shtick. We've been doing that for forever. Welcome to our club. And you see these guys weigh in and they hit a front double by, and it's just like, hey, yeah, that's our shtick. I honestly, since the days of Arnold, I do think that what we do here, you guys have talked about this, I'm sure, on previous podcasts, the history of drugs and drug use. That's ours. It's always us first. We are the forefront of it, right? So whatever that lag time is, I'm hoping that it shortens, right? Yeah. There's no doubt that from just an empirical evidence standpoint, they would improve if they use better strategies. Here's my other side as an athlete, right? Because I've been in the trench for a long time, like you two have. You got to be a little dumb, right? Yeah. Kind of the whole point of being that dog is shutting the fuck up in believing in a process, right? So it doesn't really matter. I think it's peanuts, whether it's drinking pH balanced water or whatever crazy shit these guys are doing. As long as they 100% faithfully believe in something, it'll work. Because the thing that works is just getting in there, following something to a T, and just going the fight, for Christ's sakes, right? That's really what it is. But we all know what happens when you put together Tom Brady. We all know what happens, right? When you put together the dog mentality, and you can have that union between not giving a fuck plus getting precision on your training, your volume, your output, right? You become Tom Brady. And very few, I think that's a big ask for any person to do, for the stars to align for anyone to do. So I hope that the trend does move up, and it's up to us. It's up to us. It's up to us to, start with guys like Dr. Joe saying I can online coach, and then it moves up to guys like Steve Cook catching in on it. Then Steve Cook starts telling the world of Gymshark, and then slowly, it starts bleeding out, hopefully, to an NFL player saying one day with a sponsored ad saying tracking my macros plus app, right? Like hopefully it'll get there. It'll get there. And dude, that's why we work so hard. That's what we do. We make it and get no credit for it. That's our MO, right? That's literally what we do. So I agree with you. Wholeheartedly, but the dumbness needs to stay. It's essential to the mission. Right?
I think it's part of the culture. And I think anytime the soul of a sport, quote unquote, which you can find in some of the most popular YouTube comments sometimes, even though you might not agree with them, like them, or think they're nuanced enough. You can get your finger on the pulse of what is the soul of a sport. When you have a sport that has a soul that is animalistic, dumb, aggressive, if you try to remove that in your delivery of science or updating things, you're going to get pushback. And this is classically shown by like Jeff Nippert on his channel when he has like Jeff, Bro Jeff, and like Nerd Jeff, and he actively shows that, hey, I'm both. Like I have both, and that's how he's able. And he still gets plenty of pushback to package this science, because it's to help me better be the bro with like more ammunition. And I think that is actually a very challenging thing to do. And I remember my very first show, 2007, I did it with Alberto Nunez. It was the Battle of the Bay INBA show in Oakland, California. And I went to go get the judges' feedback afterwards. And one of the judges like, oh, were you a wrestler in high school? Like, you're pretty lean, for your first time. And I was like, oh, no. He's like, oh, so what did you do? And I started to tell him about my super sciencey based approach that I thought was so cool. And he cut me off and he said, I'm tired of this book Bodybuilding. Bodybuilding's in your gut. And he like just ranted at me for 5 minutes, and I started nodding. Eventually, I'm like, all right, I'm not going to get the feedback today. That's okay. And I was a little bit offended, but not because he was discounting science, but that he thought I didn't get it. because he was right. Like
Right.
bodybuilding is something
Right.
in your gut. We don't do bodybuilding for, well, most people don't do bodybuilding purely for the OCD control and the manipulation of physiology and the interesting human experiment. That's there for me because I'm a scientist. But I do bodybuilding because I push myself to the limit of my capabilities and then somehow find a way forward, and it redefines my human experience. And it's a way to get that dog out, as you said. So I think when
Sure.
anytime that gets removed, even a whiff of that seemingly getting removed from here's how you bodybuild, you get those YouTube comments like, I don't think Arnold thought about that, you know? And and you're right. This isn't a key element. And I think you need to acknowledge that and to keep it salient anytime you have these discussions, or you end up losing the soul of the sport you're trying to help.
Agreed.
And I think that's been
Agreed.
something that you do really well, Ryan, and you talk about it from a
I
philosophical
try.
perspective.
I
I think you
try.
do. I think you
I
do
try.
fantastically. Because for one, you're not the science guy. You're an example of an athlete who benefits from science, and then you explain to them like, hey,
Yeah, I have no
why not
scientific
use?
qualifications whatsoever. Right.
But you have master's degree in communication, business, all the stuff that is about understanding human emotion. And I think that's why you're good at
Human
what you do.
emotions. It's a right. It's a business is it's a human science, right? Yeah.
That's right. So when I see
Yeah.
you talk, you discuss the philosophy that underpins science, which I think is an easy sell. Like, why wouldn't we use an empirical approach? Why would I listen to some traditionalist when I could actually have confidence in the information I have and put that to the test? And that's a hard thing to argue against, in my opinion. So I'd love to get a little
Yeah,
more
but
insight into just your whole mindset on how you deliver this information.
I think if I had to say what's the Northern Star is to be right. The Northern Star is to be correct, right? And I think without science, that's impossible, right?
Mm.
If you become 100% the dog, you're sports reference Russell Westbrook. You know, you'll be a great player, you'll be a great have great heart, but you can never put together the book bodybuilding stuff that's necessary, right? You get embarrassed. You're like, how did they pull that off, right? It's something out of a book. Literally, it's like magic. You know, the stuff we're pulling off.
Hmm.
So for me, I think the goal is, and the whole goal with what I've been trying to do with how I coach my athletes in Fortis, and what information I'm trying to collect is for each archetype of an athlete, where is your personal balance between, we'll use this term for the podcast, book bodybuilding in the dog,
Mm.
right? Sometimes I'm all dog and it's failed me. It's failed me in relationships. It's failed me in competing, right? Sometimes I'm all the book and I don't have enough balls. I'm scared. I'm hesitant. I don't put it out. I think too much, right? So for me, I think my whole journey here is mostly as a human, how do I express that balance, that nature? It was meant for me, right? It's not something that I'm trying to find. It's something that I was, and I forgot, right? We know about these cultures that have been wiped out in North and South America that had that balance, right? We know people have lived in harmony between their warrior and their shaman, and we know this has existed before, but somehow in this new Western culture we've lost it. And I think it's up for us, and that's what we're striving for, is that how do we become happy people, right? And part of that is that balance. For me, the medium that I'm going to take is by building my body, right? I know that if I physically build this body, strengthen it, it will do wonders for the homeostasis of what's going on up here, right? And I think people at large in the Western world, we see it statistically. I don't know the numbers, but depression is just through the roof, right? I think people are book bodybuilding too much when it comes to the equivalent of their life. So for me, I'm lucky, right? Taking it back to what we were saying earlier, I'm lucky that a foundation and infrastructure was laid that for me that I could make a living simply talking about this, right? That I did when I first started. For most of us, that wasn't really a thing. We were just interested in learning, and then we got older, and then we said, "Hey, I'm gonna sell some T-shirts," right? And then it worked, and it just so happened to work because the market was ready for us. We didn't do anything for that. So I think for me, I'm just on a quest personally for myself, and for anyone that I work with to try to find that balance. And if you want to find that balance through playing chess, and being a dog and chast type, then that's your passion. Take that route. If you want to do it through the weights, okay, I can help you through weights. If you want to do it through, if you want to open Jimmy John shops and be the best Jimmy John sandwich, right? That's your lane. Pick a lane. The lane itself is arbitrary, right? The goal is to get back to it. The goal is to get back to what we were. We were born into this thing that I feel like, it's scary as shit being born in this world, dude. It's hard, right? Imagine if a kid says, "I want to start in this industry," and the first thing he sees is this podcast. He sees Omar's work, scary. He sees your work, scary. He sees me, scary. This has manifested over. I mean, That's almost 40 years of work. That's almost 40 years of work this kid has to see. You have to do so much to get back to that highest state of whoever we are as people. So I feel like my passion is just trying to be a human, trying to be a balanced, correct human. And I think we have forgotten how much work we actually have to do, not just in capitalism, typing at the keyboard work, but it's constant work. It's constant working, and it's constant hard working. So I've let the bodybuilding be my chunk of the dogfight, right? And surprisingly, you got to be a smart dog, right? And that's what I found out later. You got to read a little bit, right? You just can't just fucking bark, 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 bark on the 4th of July, right? You got to be like, oh, those are fireworks, right? Every year around this time, fireworks. Right? You have to be a little smarter. So I think for me, if I had to say that's what I'm chasing after. The bodybuilding is just, I like it. It's a tool that I use to get to it. So, and I think anyone who bodybuilds, that's what they're doing too, right? Because anyone who bodybuilds, we're all a little broken somewhere. No healthy person is like, hello, I'd like to sign. No healthy person is signing up for this, right? Everyone's a little, right? Everyone comes in a little with a little something. We're looking to heal. So I've gotten mine, and I'm still getting mine through it, and I'm fortunate to use this practice, no different than a meditation or martial arts or whatever your lane is. So. That is the goal for me and anyone who wants to work with me. We try to find that.
I love it. Omar, I know it's not going to be the one that gets the clicks, but I really feel the title of this one should be Book Bodybuilding and the Dog.
Bro,
featuring
so,
Ryan Doris.
Ryan, you're a storyteller. I can tell this.
It sounds like a movie that RZA produced.
No.
And I would definitely watch it.
So Eric, it's amazing because Ryan, you're a storyteller, but it's the neat synthesis of the ideas into that narrative then form that only coaching can really give you, and also your personality and so many other aspects. But to your point, you have over a decade, you have 15 years in this field. And so you see that synthesis and then the culmination that presents to someone today. I think if someone's listening though, and we've had, Eric, many episodes on Iron Culture about like getting started in the industry or like finding your passion or any of those things, is one of the essential traits is to just get started. Like Ryan's talking about staying human in modernity, and also not being scared by a daunting task ahead of, basically trying to find meaningful work over time that you can invest and redefine yourself. And the idea that you must really apply yourself towards something, that the struggle is where one can oftentimes find the most meaning, almost that how do you say that test, the crucible that one must go through to merge then and redefine yourself. But I would say that I don't know if you guys agree with this, there was something intuitive that attracted me towards training, because I always liked growing up physical movement. My mom was a city track sprinter, all those things. So it always was one of those things like we would do it and I would enjoy it. But when I started lifting, I wanted to improve my body composition, right? Like we've now reflected collectively, all of us, probably 4 decades on this thing, and we realize some of the deeper manifestations of what we're doing. But when I started lifting, it wasn't like, time to redefine who I am. It may be like a little bit like, I don't like how I look. I feel sluggish. I want bigger muscles. It could be very superficial traits. And like anything else that you do, the layers that you discover over time become more and more meaningful to you as you invest more time. So I think I would just say to people listening, like if they're ever listening to us, it reminds me of some of the cats at the gym you'd hear, and they're really like getting after talking about what it means. And you're like, bro, I just want bigger biceps when you first start off,
But dude, I would have to agree with that, and not only agree with it, but I would say that should be the case for everyone, right? It's like if you look at anywhere in history, no one successful has ever made anything with something that was of inheritance. You have to start with what you have in build, right? The first, what is it, like the first step of 1,000 miles is like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, or whatever that cheesy Taoist quote is. Literally, you just have to say, what do I have today? Let me start here. And with enough time and with enough effort, that becomes a derivative of something that you could not imagine, right? You could never predict where that first step of, I want a little upper chest, may get you, right, if it's truly your passion. So I think when I look at what you're saying, I would have to agree in that's the journey of anything. Whether it be, I've been just reading a lot of like different like Abrahamic texts lately, like Torah and things. Just trying to understand these ancient texts, and that's pretty much all the idea of what these prophets have done, right? It's just like, and this is the oldest, most popular story ever in the world, right? These same stories. People are just taking, here's what you have today, work with it, have faith in what you have today, and you will go somewhere beyond your wildest dreams. So starting where you are, I think that's the hardest thing to do, because one, it's not shit. It's just a blank fucking canvas, and you're like, just paint. It's like, yeah, just paint. And you're like, but I don't know how to paint. It's like, just fucking paint though. Just paint. Just see, and then just keep going. And so I feel like today, in the society we live in, you have to start, and then you got to see Omar, and it's like, fuck, this dude's so funny. This dude's fucking good. God, this guy's follow, right? It's like, for these kids to start with 100 followers, they don't want that. They want what Helms has, right? They want to speak like Helms. They want to look like me. They don't want to start where they were. You all know this, and you all remember, and I remember, right, when we were just nothings, nobodies. It was the shit. It was so fun. It's still fun now. Don't get me wrong. A lot more responsibility, but I loved it. I loved it. And I feel that there's so much pride, people not taking what's in front of them. You will get to greatness if you just start any journey. If you want to golf, just go mini golfing. And if you keep building that, you could be Tiger Woods. You don't know where this journey is going to take you. In fact, it's hubris and ego to think that you know the direction your life is going to go. Just start, and you have no idea with enough deviations what the thing will become. No one can predict it, but that's a journey in anything. So just get to it. Enough thinking, enough more dogging.
That's right. Put the book down for a second. Don't throw the book out, but put the book down for a second.
For a second.
Yeah. So I feel like we need to hit pause just for a second, rewind, because, well, first, anyone who's listening is listening. Let me just say that. But I think we need to give some bona fides, some of that CV, some of that respect on the name for a moment, just so people know that the dog and the book are here. You were, for those who just listened, we recently had Ben Esgro on. You were the original co-founder with Ben for De Novo Nutrition, and you guys built that from the floor up. And things have changed over time, but I think there's a lot. Anyone who's aware of the journey of De Novo would respect that. Like I said, you're a learned man. You may not be learning physiology, but you are someone who has master's degrees in the science of human emotion, if we will. And on top of that, you also absolutely are a dog when it comes to the iron game. So you've got a pro card, multiple organizations. I believe you were the heavyweight winner of the 2012 IFPA North Americans. Is that accurate?
Hold on, wait, I don't know. Forgot, man. I was wait, North Americans. That was a show in Minnesota. Was it still IFPA? Pro International, Cleveland Thomas.
That's right.
That's the heavyweight class. Pro International, Cleveland Thomas. Yeah,
okay,
that was the one.
I can't remember. Yeah, that's right. So Pro International. Yep. So you've won. You're a heavyweight pro division champ. You have also placed top 5 in the 93 kilo class at USAPL Nationals. Runner up at the Arnold's in 2016, I believe. So point being is that you have mixed it up with the best in both sides of the sport. You are among the best in both sides of the sport, in my opinion. And you are also a coach, and you've been doing the damn thing, rubbing shoulders with people for, like you said, your fair share of this 4 decades of collective experience. So it's just an honor to have you on. So folks, if you think he's just a good talker, this mouth game is rooted in experience. Let me just say that.
We're not even going to dissect what that means.
The thing that I think you two would probably agree on, the reason why the mouth game is so good is because I have to talk to myself constantly. I have to sell myself constantly to keep this energy up. All right, what you both are doing and what I'm doing it's not an easy thing. You don't just wake up and just stroll into it. Your self-talk game has to be so masterful to yourself, right? You have to know when to push yourself, when to show yourself grace. And I think I've mastered trying to talk to, the world through understanding my own self, right? I think that's what most of the game is, not trying to sell someone a false bill of goods and have a slick talking mouth, but like you said, I've done it. I've been the real deal because I've learned how to sell this thing first, right? I've learned how to tell myself how to do it first, and there's no faking it to yourself. We all know that, right? There's no faking, there's no lying to yourself. So thank you, I appreciate it. It's crazy to hear that. I can't believe how much work that was. It was a lot of work. I'm breaking, like I said, man. I'm baking a bread today. I don't even think I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, but you don't forget. I know if you decided that you didn't want
No, you don't forget.
bread to rise and you instead wanted to make a protein cake and have a walnut butt, you'd be
I
right
could.
back. So yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So Ryan, let me ask you, what do you see? Like we've talked about your history briefly now and where you've gone, and you've mentioned that right now you don't have the desire to compete, and you will when you will. What is next up for you, and what are you trying to do these days?
So I feel like the last dog fight that I had in me was de novo, right? That was my last one that I did, that I had the heart to do, genuinely had the heart to do. And after that, I felt like I needed to take a time out, and just get better at being a domesticated person, right? I would be remiss to say that if you spend your entire 20s in the dogfight, there's no mistake we see these football players uncivilized, right? It's no mistake. You see them getting in trouble and things happening. I think probably for the past 4 years, if I'm being honest, I've been actually working on just skills as a person, right? Just skills that I'd like to use as a parent, as a family member, other things I lost because I was a professional athlete. And if I had to say where's my passion, where's my fire, it's in those things. Now, I know no skill is ever wasted on anything, right? Especially with how fluid our work is. Any skill that I do build in my personal life, it will come to manifest out when I'm ready for my next showing right now. So in terms of, I think, things that a person could sit and clap for me in the stands for, I don't have any real passion for that right now. But I think I'm just as dedicated to these skills that are silent skills, right? Things that no one wants to work on, right? I'm trying to call my mom more, right? Like just literally, I'm trying to work on things that I didn't have the brain space for when I was competing with LS, right? I just you don't have time for certain things, right? It's a human only has so much capacity. So I've taken a bit of a time out to just improve my average as a domesticated person, and it's been one of the most exhilarating periods of my life. I can't even lie to you. I get to live vicariously through other athletes. I get to train right without the pressure, and it's been nice. And when it comes back, and I know it will, I'll do it right. But I trust a process. I trust the process when I was out there winning and beating people. I trust the process when I'm out here, just with my girlfriend and just enjoying life and balancing. So I feel like I'm writing my story right now, and I have to get it in order before one day, I'm walking on the court saying the legend Ryan Doris, and I've got no skills, and I've got right. I'm actually trying to improve the background of who I am as a person and kind of make those connections. So it's not sexy. It's not for Instagram. It won't get you a bunch of followers, but I do feel like I'm taking a period right now, and I've been very quiet the past few years, just to get myself up better, and I feel great. And when I'm ready to go back into the arena and take all the claps, I will. But I think that's where athletes can get lost. They get addicted to the claps. They get addicted to the cheers. They get addicted to the trophy. And I've always been in it for like the thing I said. I want to be a better human, and I don't need any more trophies right now. Right? What am I going to go back and compete against Dave Ricks again? Right? What am I going to do? Like, what am I go back? Like, right? It's just what am I gonna? I'm gonna go compete against Sam, right? It's like there's nothing else I want to do. Nothing else is really interesting me. So I'm kind of just sitting out. I have a feeling of what I want to do next, but I'm not 100% sure. It's new. It feels scary, but what I've been seeing lately is athletes who were competitive and who have dedicated their life to athletically doing something else. I've been talking to my brother about this. I have a younger brother, Omar. He's actually an Olympic triple jumper. He competes for Guyana. He's badass. And he just retired. And so we've both been talking about what do we do, right? I'm still plenty in shape. I'm still plenty vigorous. And we've been trying to find ways to get out of the institution of competing, get out of the rules of the governing body, and find a formula in which we can use our bodies and ourselves and our minds to kind of go and catch that next wave of whatever that's going to be. And I think a lot of people forget, right? Michael Jackson was in the Jackson 5, heartbreaking. He sat out disco. Disco happened and he sat it out. And then he came out with Thriller. You know what I mean? So I think what people don't understand sometimes is like, dude, just get out of the limelight sometimes, right? Recalculate. So I've been proudly having fun recalibrating. And when my time to get back into the arena and fucking bust some heads comes again, I'll be ready. But for right now, I'm honoring this life right now. It doesn't sound sexy. I know it doesn't, but the foundation and infrastructure into this next phase, I think, is ever so important for me. So that's what I've been doing. Just having fun.
Eric, I gotta be honest, Ryan, I'm gonna open up here for a second. I relate to actually a lot of what you just said because essentially what happened last year, COVID happened, the pandemic, and I had been in the same flow for almost a decade of producing content and always every subsequent year. And Eric remembers this, that when we first started the podcast, even before that, I had pitched Eric myself. He was gracious enough to work with me with Kaizen on a program. And basically every year, Ryan, I was tackling a new business. So I was complicating my life more and more and more. And I had less personal time and all those other things. And it felt like a perpetual race towards something more, but at a high expense, you know? And so basically COVID happened. And it forced a pause. Gyms were closed. What am I going to do? Film content? There's no content to be filmed. So it's a forced pause, a reset on yourself. And it gave me the opportunity to reflect on everything that I did. And to your point, some of the greatest joys I've ever had in my training were the silent times, right? Where you're a nobody. You're just putting in that time. You're just finding yourself. You're thinking about it. You have that inner voice, to your point, like the personal narrative you're telling yourself of what you hope to achieve. But there's not that, it's not even external pressure, but then that external reflection, the mirror, that what you see or what you think you have to hold yourself to. Anyways, point is, the last year and a half has been a blessing where I eased back on the content. I just trained because I like training. And it's kind of weird when you talk about catching that wave, how it occurs, where I sort of was regressing, to be honest, in some ways with my training prior to that, where I felt like I'm gonna hit this next part, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and you're always almost in that like fight or flight, but it's like in fight mode the whole time. That when I took a step back, recalibrated myself, just started training, having fun, like no expect how many days I want to train, I'm gonna train 4 times, 5 times, that it culminated. And I've taken now 6 or 7 months, the longest time before this, Ryan, I took a week off maybe YouTube. But I took 6 or 7 months off YouTube, and wouldn't you know it, in the last 8 or 9 months, I've smashed 3 all-time PRs. I'm actually potentially leading up to another one. I haven't talked about, haven't shared about, nothing. Like there's no reason to. I have access basically to a gym because I'm one of the franchisees for the gym. So theoretically, I could film and I could post about it. Like it's not like, oh my God, COVID's happening now. Like you can't post it. If I wanted to, I could. And they're just personal victories, and they're more meaningful. Therefore, they will be used to explain kind of the narrative, the journey I was on over this past reframe, and hopefully help someone else out, man. But that me time or working on that deep repository that gives you the significance of what you do makes you come back. And I'll just say quick, I think in modernity, last thing I want to say, man, is I think we're taught to be so on so often that you have that gas tank that then becomes empty, and you become a shell of your formal potential. And I even think about YouTube, like the content or all these things. And when you're in that rat race, essentially, you don't have time to rebuild yourself, recalibrate, and redefine who you are. So when you say you're taking that time, and it sounds unsexy potentially to the person, the Instagram, like, yeah, but dog, when's Ryan gonna hit that like 700-pound lift or like whatever? Like, oh, you're not competing, you're not hardcore. I'm like, this is the hardcore shit right here. Like, this is the stuff that redefines you. Yeah, long term.
I love that, and I'm glad that, I gotta be honest, I'm glad that I can be honest to you and get that response, right? You don't get that from most people in our industry. We have a very especially how social media based our industry is. It's foot on the gas, never leave the limelight. When attention starts slipping, take more clothes off, hurry, 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 right? You can't leave the limelight or rush you over. But man, the real never ever expires. And never, right? Like, dude, like Jay-Z's first album is Jay-Z's first album forever. Dude, the real never expires. So, in fact, I think if there was a person that I learned that from, it was Ben. I got to give Ben credit that, right? I was always just so focused on making sure that once I got it in the limelight, once I got a piece of the money, once I got a piece of the fame, that I was never going to let it go, right? Because if you come from Burbeast like me, right, you don't let it go. You don't let that go from where I'm from. So I'm learning that, man, if you're good and if you really are running a race, at some point you have to realize that in your marathon you got to downshift the gear, right? If I'm in mile 8 right now, I got to realize, okay, man, just chill out, dog. You can downshift your pace a little bit. So I think I'm working at a good pace, right? I'm working maybe some days 3 hours, some days 12 hours, right? Whatever it calls for the day. Keeping my clients happy, keeping people right. I'm finding what I need, because I know that when the next phase comes on, and you all know how it goes, when your body is scratching for you to get in that arena, I'll be in there for 7 years tunnel vision. So I'm enjoying, for the first time in my life, a confident, sidelined period, and it feels great. And the reality is, I'm not sidelined at all, right? Like, I'm working all the time, but I'm just not on that pole position on the billboard, and I'm enjoying it. And in fact, I think the greatest benefit from this phase, especially from COVID, is my ability to be inspired again, to be a student again, right? My ability to just look back and say, well, I don't know what I'm really doing, so let me just really watch other people, right? Let me just appreciate. And right, I'm seeing so much good work in our industry, and I haven't slowed down since I started. In these kids inspire me. They're so smart. They're so funny. They move quick, right? And it's just making me say, all right, to get my longevity up. When Michael Jordan came back, he had to play with the youngins. He couldn't come doing that old Magic Johnson shit anymore, right? He had to learn a new game. So part of my journey, part of my fitness journey, I love the competing phase. I'm not saying I'm done competing, but I am saying that whenever it comes back, I'll enjoy it. But in this phase now, I have, if I claim I love this, I must honor the process, right? And right now I'm a student. I'm in the book a bit, and I'm just enjoying it. I'm just enjoying it right now. So I have to have faith that this is essential, and I am, and I've gotten comfortable with it, and it's good. So,
Man, I have to say I relate to both of what you guys are sharing a lot, and I know it doesn't necessarily seem like I'm not active, because I posted like 6 times this week on Instagram. Like it's I know people. I think what I share and what's going on inside me, I guess like everybody, they aren't one and the same. And in 2017, I finished my PhD, and since then, it has been a definite, sometimes intentional, sometimes not intentional enough, sometimes too intentional process of trying to figure out, how do I do this whole finding meaning in life thing when I don't have what felt like a never-ending goal that was just this process of being laser focused and chipping away at this stone in front of me that eventually I finished, and I got to the other side of the tunnel. I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm walking through the tunnel. What do I do now? So I definitely relate to it, and I kind of kept it alive for a bit. I've been, oh wow, I haven't competed since 2011. I took the time off so I could do this PhD right, and then I got on stage, and then since 2019, it's kind of been like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to share that experience, and then COVID hit, and I, wasn't able to travel or speak or do anything like that for over a year, and that has, just like you guys have shared, so I'm very much kind of just repeating my own experience of the same thing. It's forced me to figure out how to just be, instead of finding meaning through doing. And I think there is, of course, value in doing things, don't get me wrong. But I think I realize that in many ways, when I am not doing things, I have this fear of, well, if I don't keep moving, something bad's going to happen. I won't know who I am. I won't be happy. Or what the hell's the purpose of anything? And having to sit in that uncomfortability in that sometimes downright clinical depression is good.
Right.
Because you either find a way out or you don't. And I damn sure I'm finding a way out, and I'm feeling a lot better these days. That's the happy ending to that story. So I 100% relate. And I think much like there are seasons to the year, I think there are seasons to our lives. And you don't want to be Al Bundy constantly talking about how you are an amazing high school football player when you've got kids and a wife and a family around you that you clearly don't appreciate and you're unhappy. So you have to recalibrate. And how many stories do we hear about of these high achievers, the people who just Gary V'd it to the top and then killed themselves, especially kind of that male achievement Western archetype.
Sure.
So yeah, you can be the dog, but if you don't sit down and read the book occasionally, I definitely think that's a pathway to self-destruction, or at least an early exit that didn't have to be that way. So well said.
And I think I to both of those points I agree wholeheartedly. In one person may need 6 months, one person may need 6 days, right? No, we're not all equal, right? Your depression and your highs, there are yours, and you have to own them. I think it's egotistical at best to only want to be there for the highs and not take those chaotic lows. You must take them, right? They're part of the journey. So I think just maturing and getting older and learning to make the lows not so much about woe is me victimization, especially as athletes who go through injury and different things, but to see those lows as an opportunity to shift, an opportunity to say, oh, finally, no one's looking at me. Let me try this fucking thing out I've been wanting to try for a while. Let me take a risk. Not that many people are looking. Because when you're at the top, you got to be fucking, right? You got to be perfect. We know the game. It has perfect wins. That's it. There's no excuses. So it's nice to experiment. It's nice to try different things in these shifting periods. And if we look at these shifting periods, we just went through one with COVID. They changed the world, right? So much opportunity comes out of the disaster and chaos that just happened and all the unfortunate deaths. But things are going to change. Things are going to shift. Things are shifting. Things are different. So I think I've been trying to see the bigger picture in that, embrace mine and not waste time, right? Take my lows and see what's in it as an athlete and as a person. And you got to ask yourself, like, what am I doing here? Am I here just to be popular? Am I here just to give information, right? Like, what am I actually doing here? I think I try to ask myself that a lot. And as you said, Holmes, it's just to be, right? And I can't define what the be is. I'm so grateful and fortunate that I even get to be. I didn't ask for this, right? I had this feeling in my gut, and I just scratched it, and this popped out, right? I could not have orchestrated this. It just happened. I just worked. All I did was work hard, right? Everyone works hard. My cleaning lady works hard. Everyone works hard, right? I just so happened to work hard at something that put me here. Well, I think it's mostly luck. So, yeah.
Well said.
No, Eric, I was going to say, this is 3 grown-ass men just talking about their feelings over here. They talk about facts over feelings. We're all about the feelings that are the facts. I will say, though, it is interesting, Eric, to hear that from you about your journey and just, academia and finding a genuine meaning from that. Because one thing I can say is I do think there is, honestly, a nobility in the pursuit of higher learning and that clear path towards trying to achieve a goal. Because I could say, and I don't know if Ryan feels this way, but participating on social media where it's kind of nebulous and it's circumstantial, where you just feel this whole time that, well, wait, like, why am I even doing this? Am I even making an impact? Like, you know what I mean, Eric? Like, you're conducting real research. You could quantify things, this, that. Okay, here's the study. Here are my findings. I joke with one Joffrey Nipples the whole time, just about where he'll show me a story of, like, he sent something. So on his Instagram story, I ask a question to his audience, and it's a basic question that his audience should know, but like 35% of them get them wrong. I'm like, what am I even doing here? Like, am I actually making an impact? Like, those kind of fundamental existential questions. But I think enjoying the moment, reveling, and allowing those emotions to go through you genuinely, rather than just doing, where you don't have that time to, be introspective, to contemplate, to really think about things, and to find the simple meaning that stokes the fire, so that you could tackle those greater projects. Like, it's kind of crazy to me to think that And now I do understand. It was like, why is everyone in fitness like, no one in fitness puts out 5 videos a week? It's like, I did that for 9 years. You know what I mean? Where you're on this treadmill. And to your point, Ron, what you said, if you come from, I could relate to that, coming from a place of scarcity where it's like, well, man, I have finite resources, not only super finite resources. You best believe I'm going to get mine because I know what it's like to be the hungriest of dogs. And you never, there's a fundamental part of you that doesn't forget that, and like people talk about being hungry, but when you know what it's like to be real hungry, you're like, that's never going to happen again. And so once you probably reach a point, such as yourself too, where you've achieved so much, but it's like, man, you could have took your foot off the gas pedal a long time ago. It's like, I needed that clearance, then I needed that clearance, and even when I have that clearance, there's almost that first little bit where you're just looking like, why am I just relaxing here? Like, is this it for me? What's going on here? You're a little cagey, right?
I've been fascinated. Obviously, probably both of you have with space and what's going on with Bezos and his brother, and then with Virgin. I've been with Elon. I've been obsessed with the privatization of space in this past year and a year and a half, and just keeping up with it. I kind of realized, I was like, oh shit, to get out of space, you have to, for that first 10, you got to work. You got to work. You got to work, right? You got to work. You have to work. But dude, once you get into lower orbit, get rid of them boosters, man. You don't have to, right? I think there's a little bit of a stink on you that says like, hey, you know how I got off this planet? I had my thrusters at full blast. I had, right, like I use the largest fuel. And dude, at some point you have to realize like, look, bro, you're going 20,000 miles per hour. The momentum is behind you, right? People know who you are. Drop the boosters and just enter orbit. Right, you're going fast. So I think I'm growing to accept that I can still run fast, and I don't have to use up as much energy because I'm talented. My learning curve is now up. I can learn faster. So I think I'm trying to embrace that and shake the fear of the past that my parents instilled into my head of, we grew up on dirt floors. We grew up on dirt floors. We grew up on dirt floor, right? Because that's not the truth anymore. That's just, I couldn't be further from the truth, right? I'm on the top floor right now, and that's just, I just need to let it go. It just couldn't be further from the truth. So I need to live in my new reality. And I think a lot of us, especially bodybuilders, who go from that mantra of dirt, grind. Remember every shirt in 2010, that's all it was just dirt. I even had a shirt that said grind, that shirt, right? Everyone, it was just dirt, grind. And that was it. But at some point, pick up that goddamn book again, man, and relax, dog. relax, man. So yeah.
Well said. I relate very much to everything that's been said in this conversation. And I think hopefully it's a really good reminder for everyone that's listening. We talk a lot about heart. We talk a lot about science. We talk a lot about, if you listen to our 2 episodes ago with Ashton and Bryce, we talk a lot about being an athlete, being competitive, finding the balance between striving for excellence, competing with others, and also giving back to the sport that's given you so much, finding some quote unquote honor, if you will, in the whole process. But rarely do we have a conversation where we can say, all right, all of these things are happening in the same person, and there's a time and a place for each, and they require some balance. And I tell you what, there's few things that piss me off that I see, but when I see people dismiss the notion of balance as the easy or weaker path or a cop-out to not, really go quote unquote all in, my immediate knee-jerk reaction is bullshit. Not being balanced is easy. Just living the grind life all the time when you are an athlete, when you are your dominant nature is the dog, that's easy. It's easy to overtrain. It's easy to just starve yourself. It's easy to just, talk shit and go all in if that's what your nature is. But you don't want to burn out early, and you have to acknowledge all these aspects. And yeah, what you did not have to think about at all in year 1. I love to lift, so I lift. Why are these guys all complicating it? Well, when you're in your 30s and you have a much more complicated life and you're looking back and you're trying to recapture that, ironically, recapturing that requires finding a lot of introspection and thinking about this and finding the meaning in all of it.
Great.
So, yeah. A little mini rant there. It's just that balance is the only path. It's the only path, in my opinion, if you want to keep doing the thing you love.
And I never had an example of that, right? And I think that's something to be said. Is that if you come from blue collar folks, like a lot of us did, we didn't know, right? Leisure is a new thing for me, right?
Mm.
That's a brand new idea for me. I never, and this is not even so much a financial thing. It's just we have the efficiency now that I don't have to go to the store. I can order something on Amazon. I have 30 extra minutes now every day, right? Just simply in my grocery run. I have so much more leisure time simply from technology. I don't have to go. I remember, I used to ring people's doorbells and ask them are they home, right? I just shoot them I just shoot them a message now, right? I have so much more leisure time simply just due to technology. So I think I'm trying to find now that instead of replacing now what technology gives me and what it gives us in the society and just filling it with crap, right? Actually trying to find that balance is now easier than ever, I think, right? And I think a lot of people would I think obviously a lot of people would disagree with what I'm saying, but I think from the examples that I've seen, when I read about the greats, the people who were the most well balanced in their personal lives and their families had good things to say about them, those are the real successes. I think at the end of the day, and those are the people that I'd like to model myself after. And I never had that example growing up just simply due to the nature of how I grew up. It wasn't bad. I had a great childhood. I loved my childhood, but folks just worked a lot, right? Just
Mm.
work. People had to work. People had to work. So I think finding balance in this new age with new technology, it's a new idea, and it does sound kind of lazy. It does sound lazy. I think even today when I say balance, it sounds so lazy to me. It's hard not to be manic because that's what made me. That's what got me out of orbit. But in this new chapter, I'm trying to focus on what does 55 years old look like for me. What
Yep.
does that actually look like for me? And it just doesn't look like a daily post, right? It just doesn't. I hope that I can come. I hope I can come down once a week, right? Like and say something wise like Mufasa, and people are just like, that's what we want. Dude, Will Smith. No one talks about Will Smith's sabbatical, man. He took that sabbatical and he came back and he's like the king of what we're doing. He's the king of social media. He reconfigured the program, and so that inspired me. The way I see what he's done and what so many people examples of the modern world, right? Just examples in the modern world of balance. I'm trying to strive and achieve for those, and I think that's going to have to be forcefully if we want to sustain. We have to find our own version. Everyone has their own version of balance. Obviously, some people need an hour break once a week, right? But finding that is going to be essential. It's going to be essential moving forward if you want to play this competitive game of creativity and freshness and new ideas, and staying healthy. That's the real secret to
Mhm.
training. Just don't get injured. That's the real secret to it. Man,
Hey,
honest.
well, what I was gonna say is I think we can all attest to this. How many the graveyard that no one talks about of people that were just the dog that potentially, and that's not an accusation of being the dog. I think there's something beautiful to be thrust into that chaos, especially when you're born into the
Sure.
chaos. But
Oh
but
yeah.
just the idea that sometimes those elements might burn you a little too early. And I can't tell you how many either training partners, people I've known. I'm not talking even at the highest level. I'm just talking people that were enthused with the concept of training and self betterment, and
Oh
maybe
yeah.
for a variety of different reasons. When COVID hit, I can actually say this because I see them on social media and whatnot. The amount of elite powerlifters, I've shared this with Eric before, that have just basically pieced the F out of lifting just because they couldn't have it their way. They became so ultra specific and goal oriented for a singular purpose that that deep repository of other potential meaning is just gone for them. That when it hit and they couldn't do what they want to do and they couldn't ride and compete at the highest level, they pieced out. And that's just one small example. But we
Right.
collectively, the three of us, know that graveyard. So it's one of those things where that survivorship bias, where you'll see the loudest, because it's the
Right.
lucrative a voice that appeals to our primal instincts, where someone's like, man, you got to grind more than anyone else. Like someone's coming after you. Like, oh, someone's coming after me. Like you're looking behind your back,
For
and
sure.
and we don't recognize once again the potential
No.
graveyard of that lifestyle because they're silent. They're no longer on social media. They're not talking about it. So all
For
we see is
sure.
that 1% of the 1% that is still in that crucible that's able
Constantly.
to, just do it talking about it. And when someone like yourself or someone like Eric or me, we talk about it, it's like, yeah, man, they're washed up or whatever. Like, oh, they okay, like this is yeah, balance, Eric, right? Like to your point, and man, if you were born and thrust into that chaos, the concept of finding balance or allowing yourself to process these things to give yourself time and
Sure.
space, that's basically a privilege that we didn't give ourselves. And from being now in that position, you could really see that if you had these systems that you're using before to get you to this point, it's not going to get you to that next level that you've dreamed about, right? That you've thought about, where all the things you've done before, your best practices,
100%.
you need to reinvent yourself to go to that next level. And it doesn't come by doing, but often by reflecting, examining everything, and letting yourself flow through those emotions, and finding, tethering yourself to a deeper meaning rather than just using the gas tank you
100%.
had and coming
100%.
back better than ever, hopefully.
I love the point you said about people just getting into that dog mode, and I think when powerlifters, were using a specific example,
Yep.
what a lot of powerlifters you see, they get into that trench, the dog locks on that bite, and they go and they're just hitting a new total, and they're hitting PRs every week, and then the star just burns out. I think what happens, especially in powerlifting, is that you can over identify with that dog. You're not the dog. The dog is just it's just an itch to scratch, right? You're still a human. Part of living is to bark sometimes, right? And if you're called upon to bark for 3 years and fucking bite hard, right? You are not the dog. The dog is a piece of you, and when you identify with that, you're bound to burn out and never see the best of yourself. I think it's shameful what a lot of these powerlifters do. They see themselves on their best day. I remember they say these things. Oh, I remember that one time everything was clicking in this meeting, and this one day, and I PR'd, and they identified themselves as that 9 for 9 day they had once one time ago, and that is their complete identity, right? It's like the dog is a tool. I have to get it out. It's a means for me to get forward as a person, to grow. And I think once you latch on and you think, oh, that's what I am, I'm the dog, that's when you've lost. You've lost completely, right? The dog resides in me, and when it's ready to bark, oh, I take my scary ass out the fucking way, and I let him do what he needs to do, right? But if he's like, yo, dog, make some fucking artisan bread, dude. Well, fuck, what are you right? I take my time and I make some bread. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I do. So dude, I couldn't. I don't think I've ever had a conversation, a podcast where I've agreed with two people more, which is why what we were saying in the beginning. It's crazy that we've never had this conversation yet.
Well,
Crazy.
let me just say, I'm basking in the insanity of this conversation. I love it, and I think I would understand 100% if you're listening still, and you probably wouldn't be if you're the person I'm describing, and you're in your early 20s, and you have no need for any of this right now. That's okay.
They'll send me an email soon. Don't worry about it. Give them 10 years. They all
Yes, that's 100% what I'm getting at, is that I didn't need this either. And it wasn't until I started to see that I was on a collision course with having what I love taken from me that I saw the value in this. And honestly,
100%.
the creation of 3D Muscle Journey was ostensibly about helping the community understand this, but it was just as much about helping myself understand this. And I remember many conversations I've had where there was part of me that realized the dog is driving the bus right now. I don't think that canine has a driver's license. He doesn't even have opposable thumbs. This seems like a bad idea. I had one conversation with my wife in 2007. And this is 3 years after I fell in love with lifting. And I said, if I couldn't convince myself I'd become Mr. Natural Olympia one day, I don't know if I'd keep lifting. And then me on the back of the bus is going, wait, what? Like, where are you driving this bus?
Off the cliff.
Exactly. So
And we need not do it. We all know what happens when you let the dog drive. It's Mike Tyson. He's the champion of letting the dog drive. We know the end manifests of that, right? We have enough examples, right? I used the word prophets, right? I try to find what is the highest example of this behavior. We already have them all. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And so for me to think that no, but the way I'm gonna do it, it's foolish. It's foolish at best. So I think to have a slice of humble pie and actually ask yourself that question, like you said, wait, what am I doing? What the fuck actually am I doing here? Right? It's almost like the trench and the bullets are flying over your head. You forget that you're from small town Oklahoma, right? You just got kill on your mind. You have to get 2 weeks. They got to fly you out to the Philippines for a break to make you realize that war is not life, right? You need a little time away from the trench. So I think the trench is addicting. It is probably, if I had to list it as a Schedule 1 drug, I would, right?
Mm.
If I could put it on that list, boy, I would, because nothing feels better than winning, and nothing feels like it, right? And it's easy to become addicted to and identify with it. And we've seen, in particular, especially in the USPA, guys identify with that 100%, grow their fucking beard out, go up a weight class, go up another weight class, and that's it, right? And that's the journey of them, and we never hear from them again. So I plan to have a long life. I hope, right? I hope to live at least with modern technology until 89, right? I'd hope with the time I'm born. So trying to ask yourself that question when you're sitting in the back of the bus and your fucking canines are showing and you're fucking, driving on this fucking bumpy road, you gotta slow the fuck down, man. Let me drive this fucking bus. It's mine, dude. So yeah.
Yeah. We're just planting seeds here, folks. It may not be relevant now. You may be fine. And I was, and I think I had to, like, I think this is a saying. I might just be making it up right now. I'm sure it's not me, but you can deny reality at your own risk only for so long. So I
Right.
think I had to realize, look, there's a good chance you won't be Mr. Natural Olympia. You look in the mirror. You're not. You have the hard work, and you have the intelligence and you have the persistence. You may not have elite genetics, and I could sit there and go, well, I'm just going to outwork everyone so that I get there. That I've seen that happen in people with a similar situation where they don't have every single piece of the pie, and they end up having to leave early because in trying to attain that level of performance, they just broke themselves, and mentally
100%.
and or physically. So for me, I've had to keep that seed growing and plant it and stay aware of it so that I can educate the dog. Again, we're going back to the theme of this podcast, book Bodybuilding and the Dog, so that I can keep progressing. Because I have had many times where it's been what feels like a hairbreadth away from losing my ability to do that which I love, bodybuilding, powerlift, and lift weights in general. I've
Yeah.
had to get hip surgery. I've had a neck injury that I joked with Omar. I was like, hey, I know we're joking about getting in this bar fight right now. We're hanging out.
Ryan, we're about to
But-
throw down, but Eric said,
But if I get hit in the neck in the wrong way, I'm never getting up again because I'm currently scheduled to get neck surgery in 2 weeks, and I'm just hoping that the tingling in my arm goes away. So I've been up to the edge. I've looked over and I've gone, you know what? I'm going to temper my expectations and I'm going to keep this dog on a leash when appropriate. Still work incredibly hard,
Sure.
but I want to get to my potential, not fall 20% short of it because I reached for a potential I don't have.
Hey man, there's a big difference between a coyote and a fucking trained German Shepherd. They're both killers. They're both killers. But man, you gotta have some structure to the dog the older you get. And maybe initially, when you're young, if there's any 20-year-olds listening to this, let that thing out, discover it, see what it's made of, see its limits, see how nasty it can get, see how much it can hurt you, see how much it can help you. Go as far as you can possibly go with it. But like with all things in life, there is a blueprint you will eventually need to manage. So even as you said, Holmes, even if we're just dropping a seed, so even if just somewhere in the back of your brain, while your dog limbic brain is driving the bus, not listening to anything, just leave it back there. Like, because one day you will need to get to this. And I feel like that has been literally, that defines what we are as humans, is leaving wisdom for the next generation. Drop me a little something that I will need tomorrow, right? I may not need it today, but I'll need it tomorrow. So this is a phase that we're in because we started all around the same time and same group. And I'm sure there's plenty that we will learn in the next 10 years as well, that we're going to look back on this and be like, well, boy, was I wrong, right? Who knows what that is yet, but the same way I started, I'm going to keep putting my best foot forward, and hopefully I'll see what derivative that becomes when that time comes. So not to scare anyone, please go hard. I mean, go hard, go all the way. Even if you think you're going to be Mr. Natural Olympia, like me, you'll get there and realize, like, oh shit, there's judges, right? Like, even if you do have the potential, right? Like, there's so many things to conquer. So have your heart set on the work. Have your heart set on just letting it out fully. And whatever someone tells you, whether they bestow the crown on you or not, That's irrelevant. Get it out. Walk your path. Just get the damn thing out. That's what's more important, not as much as someone defining it for you, right? And I think the best example we have in the sport of that is Ronnie Coleman. I don't even think he knows he won 8 Mr. Olympias. I just think he's just happy to be here, right? I think he just wants to lift no matter what, and he wants that free gym membership. That's all he wants. That's all he wants. And that's like, to me, I'm like, that dog that Ronnie Coleman is the perfect bodybuilder. He is that dog is just bite enough, just back off enough. He's perfect for it. And he's given his body for it, and we have to thank him for the excellent years of clapping that we did for him. I have to give him that. So
I 100% agree. And for anyone who would say whatever, he did it wrong, he's all needing surgery and all this stuff, sometimes you need to learn a little more. He probably had to get surgery because he had surgery the first time. He had some issues. But the point is, the dude's still lifting too. And he's happy, and he wouldn't take anything back. So he doesn't need your external judgment. In his own eyes, he's still successful.
And in ways, could he have approached it differently? Probably, hindsight's 2020. To win those Mr. Olympias and emerge without potentially any of those issues, mayhaps. But to Ryan's point, that dog that drove him there, that basically that a beautiful, elegant simplicity, a mindset. This is what I need to do. This is what I'm going to do. All these things, and this is the framework that I understand that will allow me to achieve that. Let him do what he's doing. So you can't. I think we always want this. I would call it a Pyrrhic victory, but one that he was fully aware of, and thus he made the choice, and then he's comfortable with the outcome. But all too often, I think in modernity, we want this undefinable victory that's simply not possible. Where it's all-encompassing win, no negatives whatsoever. Every single one of my actions will lead to just pure positive trade-offs, rather than every single thing potentially being a trade-off of opportunity cost, benefits, all those things. Yeah.
And that's a direct, in my opinion, that's a direct correlation of spending a little too much time in the book, right? I think the one fault that I've seen every time I've been able to be around, I've been around smart people my whole life, right? I'm glad to be talking to you. I'm glad I've always been around smart people. And the one thing, as someone who is from the trench and I'm hearing the science, I've always sat there and thought, at these conferences in particular, I've always sat there and thought, like, man, you all have no idea what's going on in these gyms, right? You have no clue what's going on in these gyms, right? I was thinking the other day, like I said, I've been getting into cooking a lot. I was looking at, obviously, look at all this organic material around us, and I was like, how do we know what to eat? How did we boil it down, right? And it's like, well, we had to eat everything. Like we had to eat everything, right? We had to try everything. We had to do every approach to boil down, eat this, plant this. We had to work towards there. And that is an essential part to me about bodybuilding, right? You must have people getting it wrong, right? The book, the science can't try to have too much control of, I guess it's the best way to say it. What would Darwin say of the natural selection of what works, right? Like we don't know what works until someone tries it. I'm sure it was audacious for someone to eat 8 ounces of beef 5 meals a day, and it fucking worked. I'm sure that was the craziest idea, whoever was the first person to do that. And we found it worked. And then we find better ways obviously as we find out why that worked. You don't eat the beef directly. But so much of our growth and so much of the sport is guys in the gym just doing random shit that one day we find out kind of works. I'll never forget that Facebook post when Berto put up that Pop-Tart, right? I just looked at it and I just couldn't get my head, I could not get my head around it. I understood what he was saying, but it was more, we all know, it was more of just like a formative thing he did, right? You don't have to actually eat the Pop-Tart, but he was showing us, look, here's the wildest thing you'll ever see. And now today it sounds commonplace, but back then, meal plans, brown rice. What was Dave Punchinella? Remember that?
Six
guy?
foods, bro.
6 foods, right? The 6 foods. What were they? Tuna, sweet potato, brown rice, something. I forget.
Chicken, maybe broccoli.
Right. He said there were 6 foods you eat. And he's kind of right. If you eat those foods, you'll hit the goalpost, right? But it takes science to polish it. So I think for me, when I always look at the book, the science, I say, the science is here to fine-tune my antenna, right? It's to get me on the correct station. But the actual knob turning, that's the dog, right? The dog has to, I have to do the marching. The dog has to be in the trench doing it. So don't let, if I had to give a big advice to the balance, don't let the science control the walking. The science is simply the GPS, so to speak, right? I'm still the driver. The dog is still the driver, but fine tune that turns, fine tune it through the science, and let that kind of be the navigation as opposed to the blueprint. Because the science is, if you try to walk from a kinetic approach, you would spend all day. You say, okay, my head has to bounce up 2 inches, and I have right. You would never be able to figure out how to walk reading from a book. Throw that fucking baby on the carpet, man. He'll figure it. He'll figure it out, right? He'll figure it out. Just throw him in the trench. And if you want to get better at walking, then you can read about walking, right? You can read and fine tune it. So I think that's where a lot of people who come in now have a hard time. They start with the science, and it's like, yeah, man, just start, just start. Then fine tune it through the knowledge and let that guide you.
Yeah, it's very easy for the intention of science, which is to take an empirical approach to find what we think is in the realm of optimal for most people for starting, to descend into a neurotic, motivated, I'm not going to start until I have it perfect. And I think that is basically what the YouTube bro comment rails against, is the perception of that. Of that you're trying to get it perfect on something that doesn't matter, and it's actually preventing you from getting after it. So never has been the intention of science, and it isn't the intention of science, but I think we often find ourselves doing that. But yeah, ultimately, some of the, if you look at what scientists were doing in the early days, there was a lot of dog involved. Let me try implanting pig testicles in myself to see what effect it has on me. That's crazy.
What's the name of the regulatory organization? Something that doesn't
the
allow
IRB.
IRB. Thank the Lord for the IRB. What was going on in the 1950s, dude?
Ansel Keys got away with some things that we wouldn't in modern times. Let's just say that. But nonetheless, I think that curiosity is what underpins science, not fear.
Yes.
And that's the distinction between those two things. And getting in the gym and trying random new shit, that is that same curiosity. So well said.
I think the correlation between science of being fearless and getting in the gym and being fearless, so much of the formula, I think, is waste. And I think people are so fearful of getting it wrong because they correlate it to wasted effort. If I had to be honest, this is me. I'm not the sharpest knife. Let me say that right. That's how dumb I am, right? If I think that 50% of my efforts are error. If I had to say, when it comes to trying things out, 50% of it is just me getting it wrong. And what do I learn from that? Well, maybe I should read. Maybe I should focus, right? It's the getting it wrong that, not to sound cheesy, that kind of helped me get it right. And you cannot be afraid to have wasted efforts. You can't say, I only want to start and put in my effort only when it's perfectly going to land. It just won't bode that way. You have to waste time. You have to waste effort. You have to say, well, that was a waste for nothing. I did all that work and I didn't lose 3 pounds, right? You have to waste. You have to try. You have to experiment. So the fearlessness, I think, is the backbone for whether you're in the lab or whether you're in the gym. You have to be fearless and say, fuck it, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to try it. I don't care if it doesn't work for 6 months of effort. That's the game. And that takes balls to do, because it's hard to do that. It's hard to waste months and days of your life on something that just doesn't come out.
Well said, Ryan.
What I will say very quickly, I think you guys both hit the nail on the head in the sense that it's the fear of being wrong, and it's the desire for some people to almost use a cheat code that experiential knowledge will give you by merely doing it. And that is, like, I think a lot of us have a little bit of that pioneering spirit, or wanting to be a navigator. You know, I'm going to make the nerdiest of references here, Eric, just to bring it right back down.
Is it Flight of the Navigator?
Next Generation, Jean-Luc Picard, where he says, the heart of an explorer, soul of a poet, where I think you miss the beauty of trying something yourself and then reflecting upon it as opposed to like basically when we talk about book bodybuilding, people just want to be told the answer. And it reminds me in ways of music. It's like, Google, how do I become a really good guitarist? A musician's like, here are the riffs, here are the licks. It's like, okay, but do you understand the fundamental melody, harmony, rhythm, the interplay?
sure.
Do you know what these chords sound like? Do you know what a diminished chord sounds like? Augmented, do you now understand if you add a ninth? Like this, can you hear the sounds? And it comes from the experiential act of doing it that it starts making sense. Because you could understand the theoretical aspect, and you could understand, oh, this person wrote it this way, like this is how he decided to do it, like he raised it to the fourth, whatever. But until you actually play it and you could really hear the sounds, and then you could make those patterns and associations, it's absolutely meaningless to you. And so you can have a cheat code where you can have an approximate style almost, and there's someone called a phenomenal jazz teacher, Barry Harris, where you think you can mimic what someone else is doing, but you can't speak the language, and that's a whole difference right there. That I think.
Knowing and understanding are not the same thing, huh?
Yeah.
Would you say that you're listening to Jimi Hendrix, but you don't hear him?
You don't really hear him, man. You don't hear him all the way. No, I will say
that's a White Man Can't Jump reference. I hope you guys got that. So.
Hey, look, I watched it one time when I was like 15 because Wesley Snipes was my dude. You know, it was the film because once again you go with what you have, with what your parents rent. Money Train with him and Woody Harrelson. Okay, I wasn't big
That's
into
same characters, just like alternate universe,
bro.
Yeah,
100%. So they didn't rent White Man Can't Jump. They rented Money Train. So I saw Money Train. I was like, oh, that's Wesley Snipes. So when he became Blade,
it's
I was
the
like,
spiritual
oh,
successor.
Shit.
It's the same thing. This is not playing basketball. It's literally the exact same characters. It's amazing.
Well, Rosie Perez was in White Men Can't Jump, right? Because she was like in every film in the early 90s, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Everything from 88 to like 93. She was just the hot. Hey, she was just the hot Puerto Rican of the era, dude. And we all were all there for it too. I didn't even understand. I was too young to really wrap my head around it, but I liked it.
Yeah. I was definitely a fan as a young man. Also, I will say one more Wesley Snipes shout out. So when he was in one of the Expendable sequels, I can't remember what, they had to break him out of prison to get him on the team. And then just to show you how much respect I have for Wesley Snipes, they threw this joke in there. They asked him like, hey, what were you locked up for? And he looks at him and he goes, tax evasion. Because he literally got in trouble in real life. They broke the fourth wall there for tax evasion. I'm like, if you can't respect that, what can you respect? So anyway.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Look, he is
shout out
Nino
Wesley
Brown.
Snipes.
All right. So
big shout.
He's the man, dude. He's the man.
I think there has been so much said here. So, like, honestly, it's one of those things we feel like a masterpiece has just been hit. I'm way cockier than both of you guys. Where it's like, I don't know, if like someone in their early 20s, I'm like, if you don't understand that, that's on you. Like, great art, your opinion of it is a reflection of you and not the art itself. We dropped the episode, we have the conversation, and truly, it's like, oh, like I didn't, I watched Andre Rublev, and it just wasn't my thing. I'm like, that's you. That's nothing to do with the film. It's absolutely a reflection of you. So I will say though in closing, because I love all the quotes Ryan was dropping. Two real quick, because we're talking about book bodybuilding, and then we're talking about the dog. And in Metropolis, Fritz Long, there is that quote about the head and the heart when they're aligned together. So those two things, like the drive, the fundamental drive that you have, and then you thinking about it, that really, humanity gets kicked off to the next level. So I think I love the episodes, and I like the natural organic flow of these things, the improvisatory nature of the conversation. We could kind of go anywhere and everywhere. We thought, Eric, myself, we hash things out roughly, but man, when it goes to these places, to these corners, that's what's up.
Sure. I appreciate you. I appreciate you all. I've been trying to, like I said, understand this classic story, whether it's bodybuilding, Book and the Dog, whether it's, like I said, whether it's the Bible, right? This God man, it's the story of duality that we've been seeing over and over, told in a million different ways. We keep trying to tell this story, and we're all on that search for that balance to connect those two kind of different pieces to us in whatever definition of what your lane is and what you do. So I'm glad to be on this journey. I'm glad to hear my peers on this journey in your perspective, and I'm glad we got to share this with the world. It was it made me feel good. This has been on my mind for quite some time. I had no idea what I was going to talk about today. I was like, man, I went on a run this morning. You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea what value I was going to bring. So I do appreciate you too. Thank you for making me feel at home.
Oh, our home is your home, and we're glad to have you here. It was more than I could have hoped for. which is like the nature of improv, like you said, at least the nature of good improv, like you said, Omar. And yeah, I just want to say big thanks. Our pleasure. Very welcome. And I think, Omar, we close it out right there.
No, that's what I was saying. I'm like, man, there's so many nuggets here. Like we came full circle. We had the hero's journey where we all kind of look back at each other because we realized the journey we're on. And you just have that silent nod. No words are uttered because no words can really capture the significance of the moment. And you just know.
When life gets open, I have to see the two of you. When the traveling comes back, I have to, within the next 5 to 7 years, force myself to have a reason to see the both of you. I have my relationship with Ben, Omar, so I have to see you. I should have seen you 15 years ago, Helms. So we have to at least meet, be at the same expo, something at the very least. We need to make sure we cross paths before this thing is over. So
100%.
Jacinda Ardern, I hope you take, that is our prime minister, I hope you take what Ryan said as a direct request to speed along our vaccines and border restrictions. I'll leave it at that. Just if you can't let Ryan Doris influence governmental policy here in New Zealand, then what does influence it is all I have to say.
Come on, man.
I'm in all the way. But Ryan, before we let you go, man, where can people find you? Because we're going to include that the social media links in the description.
Yep. So luckily, Google, my name is my name. I don't go by a stage name or a trade name. So if you Google my name, you can find everything. Probably for our vessels, the most popular being Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. All of my handles are the Natty Pro, TheNattyPro. I actually, funny story about the Natty Pro. I remember Doug Miller competed in like 2010, and I turned pro like the very next year. And I remember thinking like, okay, I want to beat Doug Miller one day, so I'm gonna use the name. I almost put the Natty Pro, right? It was almost like that was a dog in me talking back then, right? So the Natty Pro is the handle I've used for years. I'm lucky I got it. It's what I've gone by forever. And then my website is fortiseq.com, fortiseq.com. It's essentially a bit of this conversation in a summary of kind of how we do that with coaching. So I've always had a small group, 55 people or so like that. So I don't have a big group. I don't have a ton of coaches or anything like that. It's just a real small personal group of coaching. And I know all my athletes' names. So it's a good group that I've been running for a very long time now. So my website, fortiseq.com, any social media platform, the Natty Pro. Or you can Google my name. I'm there. I'm on the internet. So reach out. If you hear this in 5 years, I'm sure I can still follow up on this. So anytime you hear this, do reach out. I'll still be around. I plan to, at least.
No, I love it. To the point that we get sometimes on occasion an episode where someone will share something like it's episode number 13. So 2 years ago, it's, wow, just listen to this episode. I do love the permanence, the sense of permanence of some of these things that we do that people can then find
evergreen content for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, 100%, man.
Sure. You all are making that. I still watch those videos you did, Holmes, where you sat outside with Ogus and you just preached the gospel. It was like you were on Mount Sinai. It was just like, whoa, this dude is. You know what? I'll never forget that moment because that was when I first realized, and I got to give it to you, Holmes. That was when I first realized unload the full fucking clip. There are no secrets. That was the first time when I was like, whoa, you can tell it all. And you did that, dude. So I'm telling you, man, you've done some monumental things that I've just been like, wow, appreciate you, man. Appreciate both of you.
Bro, no,
I take that with a great honor.
Eric, that is the new nickname for you, Eric Full Clip Helms, where it's like, there ain't no previews here, okay? There ain't no curtains. Like, when I go in, I go all the way in. But no, I will say, Ryan, thank you so much for being on. I'll make sure to link everything, the social media on YouTube and also on the iTunes. I want to thank everyone for listening to another episode of Iron Culture. You could go ahead and please the algorithm, even though we said we ain't about the algorithm. You have to be independent of it. But if one was to participate and wrestle with this thing that we call modernity, go ahead and leave a rating and review. If it's not 5 stars, like, honestly, it's just not worth your time. So, like, just sit that shit out.